Okay, so let's go ahead and start getting everything ready. Popping out chat so I can pull it up when I need it. And if you are watching this, after the fact on YouTube, which almost everyone but me is at this point, it takes a few minutes for people to come in, Don't forget to, subscribe and hit the bell icon, like the video. Sponsored by Anycubic Photon, for the most part, is easy mode for miniatures. I say for the most part because I've been having some problems with larger prints that have been hollowed, and it's mostly my user error. Insufficient supports caused Grendel to have no front half of his... It's like his bent leg was like that. No knee. Or foot below it. And as the title says down here, right below, right here, we're doing Beowulf tonight. Now that I've given the skinny to you guys watching after the fact, pretty much gonna waste a little bit of time while the other viewers show up. And one of the ways I'll waste it is tell you what kind of mishap I had yesterday morning. Or this morning, actually. Last night I started Grendel. Get up this morning and there's mostly no print. I go to remove the tank so I can, peel the failure off the FEP film. There was a small puncture in the FEP film that allowed an unusual amount of resin to get into on the entire floor of the printer, meaning there was cured resin on top of the LCD screen. No! Fortunately, the metal spatula that I used for the CR10 was sufficient to peel that up, and actually there was enough for me to pry a lot of it off. And my LCD screen is now cleaner than it's been in a very long time. How bizarre. That's a joke. How bizarre, how bizarre. And now that I'm live, like I said, tonight I'm sculpting Beowulf. Excuse me. And let me grab some soda real quick. The plan is each and every giant that I make for this upcoming Kickstarter will have figures along with it. It could be, for example, Grendel includes Beowulf. Good old Farragut includes Roland, Horn of Roland, the paladins of Charlemagne. But it's not always human figures. For example, the Basajan are a Basque set of furry giants. Imagine Wookiees with the face of David Deneau. And they carry around menhirs, 10-foot tall stones. So they're going to be including some standing stone and, similar set pieces. And Cormoran really doesn't have anything associated with him besides the mummified cow tied around his neck. So he's coming with dead villagers, including one that's just a boulder with like feet and hands sticking out from underneath, maybe a little puddle. And tonight being, Beowulf, it's doing the first Beowulf sculpt tonight. First secondary. From now on, I am not going to be doing the the giants themselves live. I'm only going to be doing the side figures, the secondaries. And hello, Mark! Like I said, Beowulf. Yeah. That does not mean... Well, see, we're going to have a problem with Beowulf in the same way that we had a problem with Grendel. But opposite. You see, Grendel, all we know about him is that he's really strong, and he killed a whole lot of people inside a mead hall, and is really sneaky, and apparently has the mark of Cain. We don't know if he's supposed to represent a giant, a troll, a human berserker. Well, it wouldn't be a dragon because Norse dragons, their legs were like the legs on a dachshund, except mostly tail. And since there's already a dragon in Beowulf at the end, after he's... oh yeah, that reminds me, I forgot to do something real quick. Since there's already a dragon, we can't... it's obvious that neither Grendel nor his mother are dragons. So with Beowulf, we don't have enough information. With Grendel, we don't have enough information. With Beowulf, we have almost too much. You see, the trick is, Beowulf was... The original story was apparently written down in around 580 or so, plus or minus a few years, so roughly within the same time period as, of all things, the time that supposedly King Arthur took place. Even though King Arthur never existed, he's a concatenated character of multiple different sources, and I don't want to get into that, but anyway. So Beowulf is pre-Christian. But the person who actually wrote down the story was a Christian monk. So he took elements of the story and rewrote them to fit his paradigm. For example, if Grendel was a troll, then the monk who actually wrote the story down couched that as he had the mark of Cain. So the thing is, though, for the same thing that prevents us from knowing what Grendel is, means we can isolate exactly what kind of outfit and what kind of equipment Beowulf would have. And really and truly, in that time period, in that region, it'd be kind of boring. It's just a, tunic, breeches, boots, sword, maybe an axe, shield. Kind of boring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take anyway, so I'm going to take just the basic concepts of what he does and how I would equate that into D&D. Now, yes, he does grappling, but I'm going to go back to 3.5 and say that his grappling is a feat. He's not a monk. In fact, based on how he reacts, he's more than likely a fighter barbarian. Now, we know he uses sword and spear. In fact, he uses a sword explicitly to slay Grendel's mother and to slay the dragon. So he's going to be a swordsman. he may or may not have a shield. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him kind of, no breeches and boots. I'm going to give him a kilt type thing with an overlap, big burly bare chest, and maybe armor on one shoulder or another, and sword in his hand ready to grab. He's also going to be a little bit bigger than the average figure. I'm going to make him about 115% of the normal size. Now what this does, 120% would be someone that's like 7'6". 115, you're looking at someone who's just right at about 7 foot. He's going to be, just buff as all get out. Because he's got to be to rip the arm off of Grendel. He didn't just dislocate it. He didn't break it. He ripped it off. Excuse me. I've got to copy the link real quick. I'm going to post it in yeah, Beowulf. Me. Anyway, the big question is pose. So I'm going to go ahead, let's kick it over to Daz Studio. I said, let's kick it over to Daz Studio. There we go. Alright, and yes, as you can see, I've already got my basic male figure. We're going to go ahead and add on the basic kilt skirt thing. And then we're going to give him, well, it'd be a Viking sword, so it'd be under V. It'd be under V. Yes, it would. There it is, Viking sword right hand. Actually, let's put it in his left hand. Because he's going to be... Okay. So what we're going to do is now we're going to take him, parameters, general, and scale to 115%. You saw how much his height jumped up. Now we're going to modifiers and we're taking muscular. He's buff. He's a burly man. He's not a girly man. He's a burly man. And then something I added a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago, a beard. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to hide the beard and the tunic skirt. So that we can actually, and the sword. So we can actually pose him. So we're going to expand from selected. There we go. Let's hide the beard, hide the tunic skirt. Yeah. Okay. So, if he's reaching forward with that right hand, that means his left leg will be what's going to be coming forward. So let's go ahead, let's tilt it forward, twist, and tilt it that way. Because after all, we want to make sure that our, oh, that's way too much. We want to make sure that our hips aren't parallel to the ground. And we're trying to make sure we get this leg right. Okay, also, let's go ahead while I'm thinking about it and lock the side to side of the shins and the forearms. Because, you know, just in case. When we do a front view, and we can see that, okay, this is the foot that's going to be on the ground. go. Hit Control D to drop it to the ground, and we're going to zoom in. Okay. Let's get in the field. There we go. And then another Control D because it was a little high. Alright. Now, while I've got it there, I'm going to go ahead and pin translation and rotation. Perspective view. Alright. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and import the base I'm going to use. Now, I'll tell you right now, the base is going to get turned unique. It's not going to stay what it is. So that's going to be bases, base flat. And now we're going to the front view. The reason I'm doing this now is because I want to make sure that this slightly larger figure fits on the base. So his pose is going to be very specifically fitting on the base. Okay, so I'm going to go side to side a bit with this thigh. Bending at the calf, but also twisting. And then bending at the toe. Oh, no, I said toe. Yeah. Now we're going to hide the base. Go to the front view. And we're going to select both feet. And zoom in. Oh, I see why I gotta undo that. Okay. Alright, now what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna push it up and back a little. Just so that we can okay. Now under perspective we check, make sure. Nope, his foot is too far back. So we're going to grab it. Grab that foot. We're going to grab it here. And that way we can bring it forward. And bring it down a little. And then we're going to bend it a bit. Unbend it a bit. And front view. Okay, we need to, there we go. Okay, that's his lower body. Now for his upper body, we're going to twist them this way. We're going to bend the upper torso forward just a little and side to side that way. We're going to bend the upper torso back and side to side that way. Actually, not quite so far. Yeah. Now we take the shoulder and bend it down a little and forward. And then we're going to twist. And twist. Actually, let's go ahead and now as I'm using this, let's grab it and let's, whoa. And let's unbend that. That's part of what was causing problems. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to select those fingers and we're going to bend them slightly. Again, we want to make this look like he's reaching out for a grab. We're going to grab that thumb out and okay. Now this, we're going to twist back a little, bend the arm this way, twist it like that, and let's see. Side to side the neck. Bend the head back and twist it a little. We want to be kind of vaguely looking in the direction of his outstretched hand. So that is our heroic Beowulf pose. And just to keep the whole heroic thing, we're going to make his head just a little bit smaller than it normally is. So shrink it about there. Doesn't look like much now, but when you actually start getting sculpting, it really does make a change, make a difference. Case in point, we're also going to Z-scale the thumb here and here. I'm gonna shrink that thumb because it'll help make the thumb look a bit more real in this half-bent pose. So, making the beard visible and the tunic skirt visible. Now what we're going to do with the beard, we're going to go ahead, we're going to open up to the chest of the beard. There. And what that does, that basically, by doing that, by twisting the chest of the beard slightly, it brought the center of the beard back down towards the figure. Now, we need an expression, what little expression we can get directly on the head. So, we're going to give him a bit of a the Rock eyebrow. And we're going to close the mouth. This is going to be our Beowulf. And hello, Emilio! I'm sorry, I'm kind of not paying attention to our viewers right now because I'm paying attention to the sculpt. Yay, sculpt. As you can see, I'm wanting to make sure that I stay at high quality. Alright, now, going back here, we're going to hide the base. Well, let's... the base, the beard, the tunic skirt, and the sword. We're going to export this as Beowulf base. Basic. Okay. File. Export. Broadcast miniatures. New. Actually, hold on a second. That's just way too many. I'm going to... I'll be just a moment. I'm going to go in here and completely change. No, not that one. Broadcast miniatures. New. Select them all. And cut. And put them in old. And there we go. Bing. Alright, now. File. Export. And once again, broadcast miniatures. New. Oh look, there's nothing in here now. Beowulf body. Accept. File, export. Beowulf sword. Accept. And yes, his sword's name. Does anyone currently in the chat know what his sword's name was? Even understanding that he didn't get the sword until after he beat Grendel's mother, what was Grendel's sword's name? What was Beowulf's sword's name? Okay. Oh, I forgot to do something here. Let's go ahead and, once again, we need to do one last thing with this sucker. The left thigh twist is 39.8. So the left thigh of the skirt is negative 39.8. The right thigh is 0.82. It's negligible. Okay. So file, export, Beowulf skirt, accept, and then we had the beard. File, export, Beowulf beard, accept, hide the beard. Don't be scared. It's just a beard. And make the base visible. File, export, Beowulf base. Okay. And now we go from here to ZBrush. Exactly, Emilio. And what happened to fronting? Document new. Import. No. We want broadcast miniatures new Beowulf body as our then we go to subtool and append and basically start loading in all the other parts. We're going to start with the skirt because that's going to be the soonest thing that we add. We're going to append Polymesh 3D, and this time we're going to import his beard. Then Polymesh 3D, import his sword, append Polymesh 3D, and import his base. Now we're going to hide everything except for the basic body. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and start tweaking some of the musculature. Like right in here, we need to change that. The way the rigging works, it made an issue of it. We're also going to simplify that. We're going to go ahead and come back in with a better musculature. Do you remember what happened to fronting? I'll allow a very simple answer. You don't have to be extremely explicit with what happened. We're going to smooth that out again so we can do a more accurate anatomy. The original version of the geometry that I use, frighteningly enough, was originally intended for a superhero game. Not a tabletop game, but the meshes for a superhero real-time strategy role-playing game. Game is called Freedom. So a lot of the anatomy on here is more cartoony. And yes, we're increasing this pectoral a bit more than the other one because this side he's pulling the shoulder forward a lot. We're going to pull this one a little in with some smoothing for the same reason. Now we're also going to shrink the mouse. We're going to hit Alt and deflate under this particular muscle and then smooth it a bit. Again, for exaggerating the muscles. Okay, and then we're gonna come up over here. Alright. Now, to be exact, it broke against the skin of Grendel's mother. And he found a magic sword in her hoard. Because remember, I don't do the Angelina thing. This is like the actual myth. Not the actual myther. And hold on just a second. Sorry about that. Now, let's go ahead, frame it out, zoom out a bit, and we're going to subdivide it a couple times until it's 1.446, delete lower, Dynamesh 768, blur of 0, Dynamesh. See, the advantage of making pretty much a fantasy fighter barbarian as our Beowulf is that, well, to be totally honest, it could then be used as a generic character if you need to. You don't have to make him, only use him as Beowulf. You want to have these figures that we make to be usable for a lot of other people. And if you happen to be playing a character who's a, fighter barbarian, and you think, hey, that's a perfect look for my guy, cool. It's like, I lost track of how many basic troop types from Warhammer ended up being used as player characters in games that I either ran or played in. Like the Elven Spearman was one party's paladin with a defensive polearm style. Okay, now we got him going on that. We're going to divide it a few times, delete lower, and we're going to merge down. Not done dual, always okay. Okay, and then we're going to Dynamesh it. Then we smooth in, shrink this mouse, and bring the smoothing back up to 100. Back up to 100. There we go. We smooth it out. Now the thing is, we need to make something that is a distinct divisor between the skin and the top here of the tunic bottom here, the kilt, the proto kilt. I'm calling it a proto kilt because they didn't have kilts back then. To be exact, they didn't have kilts in Scotland in the day of William Wallace, contrary to what you see on Braveheart, and I hate Braveheart. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hide the fingers and the thumb and the lower arm here. I'm going to hide this part. So that we have a nice, easy access to the midsection. And then we're going to shrink this with a control, bring the focal shift all the way down, and auto masking. Control, backface masking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a section around his waist that represents where it was folded over. Okay. So I'm going to mask off a relatively even top for it. Actually, I need to do one other thing first. Uh-oh. I think I may have just made a boo-boo. I think I just went too far. Okay, down higher. Yeah. Alright, so come around the waist. Yeah. Come around this way. Up a little bit and meet. Now, I'm actually going to shrink the mouse a bit more and do a bit of an irregular surface. Not surface, but a regular edge. And then I'm going to make it bigger again and fill in all the gaps. Now, I'll be honest, the trick I'm about to do really... I'm using 3D Studio Max for part of it. And it's a bit of a... It's based on the trick that I used to make the repeating chainmail on the Norseman last week. Or week before, whenever it was. So now I'm going to kind of just whoop. I'm going to try to sharpen some of these. Not all of them, just some of the longer ones. like this. And that one. And this one. Okay, so that is going to be the waste area. So we go up to subtool, we go down to extract. We set it at 0.02, we extract. Accept. Draw. Go back to the body and draw so that, you know, it's still masked. We don't want that. Come back down. Now, if you Control-Shift-Click a piece, it'll isolate that. Only it's visible. Well, we want to go ahead and... We don't want that part visible. We want to have, basically, all of the outer bits invisible right now. And right now, until I Dynamesh, it separated the inner bits and the borders. So now I can select all of them. Now only the outer is selected. I then come down to masking and inverse. Then close masking, visibility, hide points. Geometry, modify topology, delete hidden right here. Now this is all there is in that subtool. That's great and all, but it doesn't look right. Go ahead and turn on that. We're going to frame. So what I need to do now is what's called Z-remesher. If I tried to use Dynamesh, it would close the holes, and I don't want that for what I'm about to do. Z-remesher once just for a basic, and it'll follow the geometry. You can see the seams in the groups right now. I mean, you could if I had zoomed in, but when I do this, this will go away. And there you see really nice clean topology. But it's still too much. And I see a problem down there, but that will be taken care of in the future. Alright, so we're going to turn off adapt, turn adaptive size to 0, and set it to half. Z-remesher. And we're going to keep doing this until it's, yeah, that should be enough. Alright, now we're going to export this. Export this as Beowulf skirt topper. Okay, that sounds good. Because I want to keep that upper border where it is, because I'm doing something special with the upper border. So let's go from here. And in case you're wondering, yes, I'm doing all of this on a single monitor setup. Import. Bum bum. 3D meshes, free sculpt minis, broadcast miniatures, new. We're going to load in first Beowulf body because of how I'm going to handle this. Okay, and we're going to give it a material that's 50% opacity. Now let's make it 70 because I want to be able to see a little bit more. Then we're going to turn off show frozen in gray and freeze it. This way I can't select anything on it. Then file, topper, import. Okay, as you can see, we look over here, there is in fact a gap right here that we don't want. So what I'm going to do, I click this button, it selects open edges. I click and it selects that entire top edge. I hold down Control and click on Vertex while it's editable poly, and it converts it to a vertex solution. Now, I go down to a soft selection. Use soft selection. Oh, that's a lot. And change. So I gotta reduce the distance. But I want to pinch it a lot. Okay. Now, I go to push. And I push negative. Until it's inside. Until I can't see any of the red outside of the waist. Collapse all. I'm going to do some further repair, so to do that I'm going to hide frozen objects. There's a problem. Where was it? Yeah, it's right here. There's a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select that, make sure soft selection's off. I'm going to click right here and then zoom in. And what's the problem? Okay, so instead of smooth and edged highlights, we're going to edged faces. Okay, I'm going to think that this vertex kind of needs to go like that. Okay, now zoom out, unhide frozen objects, and turn off these edges because that's a bit much. And then we're going to use shell. And when I first put it on, it goes out. I don't want it out very far. I only want it out 0.1 millimeter. But I want it in 1 millimeter. And what that does, that makes it stick out from where the skirt is. We're also going to change the segments to 2. Collapse all. I'm then going to select the one of the edges. Oh, it's on an editable mesh now. Always goes to editable mesh after shell. So I got editable poly. I select that. I click loop. Now, this is not the loop that's at the absolute edge here. That's one in. If I click the down, it goes even further away from what I wanted. So I click up, Z, and yep, the entirety of the outside of the edge here along the bottom is selected. Let me show you with edged faces. Z. So what I'm going to do from here is chamfer 0.001. Let's turn off the edged faces. And then I'm going to mesh smooth it once. That should be good enough. Collapse all. This is what's going to be representing the top of the kilt overlapping over a belt. Hide frozen objects and file. Export selected. OBJ format. Meshes, pre-sculpt meshes, broadcast minis, new. Beowulf skirt topper. Save. Yes. Export. Done. And back to ZBrush. Now, as you can see, I still have the original open-faced version. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and import the closed version. Now, there's a couple things I need to do. I've got it on Move Topological. I'm going to increase the size of brush size again. And I'm going to grab the front and lift it out a bit more, and lift it out here a bit more. The reason for this is because this is where his rope belt is going to be coming out from under. Make sense? Also, we're going to go ahead and subdivide it until it's about, 100,000 to do. Now, we're going back to him. We're turning on transparent because we want to start our drawings underneath. I'm going to hide the fingers and the hands and thumb and the arm. Yeah. Because I want a good clear shot on where I'm drawing. Now I have a brush called the rope brush. It's rather obvious what it is. And that's too thick of a rope. So the rope will be about as thick as the brush. So I just bring it down. And nope, still too thick. Now I don't have to redraw it. I can always just reduce the draw size and click on the spline. Now I'm going to split unmasked parts. Click once on here and get rid of this thing. And then here. Split unmasked parts. And here we have that. Okay, soda time. Now I'll tell you why I'm doing it using an external program to do the shaping, and that's because it would, to do otherwise would require ZModeler, which is not part of ZBrush Core. It's something that you could do in, say, Blender if you're using the Blender Sculpt, but you really need to have a polygon modeler for a lot of this. Now the next thing is I'm going to make starting off by making a nice sharp-edged basic. This is what's called a lame, L-A-I-M-E. It represents a piece that is articulated but not, it's a separate piece for, like, say, the pauldrons. Your pauldron might bend down, but your lame will bend a little bit more. It's not lame, man. It's the truth. We're going to extract this. Accept, draw, and take him, draw. We're now going to go to geometry, Dynamesh of 256, and then I'm going to shrink this and very carefully go over it with a smooth brush, because what that'll do is that'll even out the angles and get rid of that huge dip. Make it a little, well, not huge, that sharp dip. It'd be better to have this slightly smaller bent dip, even dip. Alright. Now we're going to subdivide it a couple times. Actually, I'm an idiot. I forgot to do what I was going to do. Okay. I'm going to show you another aspect of these curve brushes. Alright, so what I'm going to do is curve, which one is it? Curve tube, there we go. Curve functions. We're going to turn off polygroups and creased edges and leave it on border. Actually, we do need to make creased edges. And you see how it's got a curve here now. If I click a button, I have a tube around it. Well, it's a bit big, so I'm going to shrink the to about there. And there, we've got trim on our shoulder pad. We're going to then split unmasked parts. I'm going to click and that gets rid of the. Now, geometry, Dynamesh 256, and like I said, we're going to come in and just kind of very carefully, very gently get rid of the bend. Or not get rid of it, but smooth it out, make it a more even bend. Okay. Nice, quick, simple trim. Now we're going back to the big guy. We're going to use transparency so that we can draw where it's going to overlap over the armor below it. We're going to give him more of a... a rounded, following where the deltoid is. Let's kind of smooth that out. And once we've done that, we're also going to go ahead and tweak the the part that goes back under the or not under, the part that goes back over top of the pectoral and the part that goes over the shoulder blade. Okay, got that. And then we're just going to kind of bring it out like this. And with a single pass, give it a nice sharpen. And the reason for this is we want it to have some kind of cool, fancy, fantasy decoration aspect to it. And now let's go ahead and hide everything else just to make this easier to deal with. Now actually no, let's make the trim visible so we can make sure we're going past the trim. Now the original was at 0.2. This one is going to be 0.035. Extract, accept. And what we're going to do here is we're going back to stroke, frame mesh, and let's make sure that this is roughly the same size, yeah. And we click. And that's a bit too much. Still too much. That's about the same, yeah. And so we're going to, as before, split unmasked parts. And then we're going to click once. We're going to keep the bends because they're pretty cool. We're now going to take the bottom plate and we're going to merge down to where the trim is. We're going to move. We're going to increase the draw size of boat load and increase the focal shift of boat load. We're just going to kind of move this down a bit so that it's actually visible. And this is our pauldron. We're going to be detailing that in a little bit. Now I change the focal shift back to 0, drop the brush down, and then we select in this guy and we're going to Dynamesh 256 Do, and then subdivide it a couple times, because this one's going to need some detailing on it. Okay. So he's got, let's see, we're going to merge those down to each other too. Merge down, merge down. Okay, now he needs straps. So, once again, with the transparent on, we're going to shrink this mouse quite a bit, about there. And we're going to draw a strap coming down like this. And then another strap coming from this wing, coming down like that. And then we're going to kind of blend them in, coming down. And then we're going to come back around, start here, strap coming down, and then coming around like this. That's where the primary strap for this is going to be. There's going to be a secondary strap coming out here. Okay. Let's turn off the transparency and frame. And now we are going to extract at 0.02. Extract. Accept. Draw. Draw. Now the thing is, this strap has a significant crease, and this one has a big one under the pec. So we really need to just go ahead and geometry, we're going to Dynamax it at 128 because it's going to be a softer result, since this is supposed to be a leather strap and not a steel plate. And we're going to kind of smooth out some of these wrinkle areas. We're also going to drop down the intensity a bit so we can be a bit more. Whenever you can, work at a lower intensity, you know, unless you're on a time constraint or something. Because a time constraint, you know, you want to just not have to do the same thing. Now we're also going to go ahead and use the move topological. We're going to shrink in here. We're going to bring this further under because we want this actually to appear to be separate straps. Then we're going to divide it a couple times. And once again, grab here and pull it under. Delete lower. Zoom out. And you can see, you know, he's got that plate on the foreshoulder. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in a buckle on the back of the neck and a buckle on the front. Now, the way we're going to handle these buckles, we're going to cheat. This is Beowulf. He's probably got all sorts of gems and stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and right about here, draw on a large gem. That's the buckle for that one. And we're going to split unmasked parts because that's going to be a lower resolution that gem is. And then back here, we're going to do the same thing. Actually, let's put it on the shoulder. But it doesn't have to be as big because it's a smaller strap. Now we're going to merge down the two gems so that they're both in one. And we're going to subdivide it a couple times. And delete lower. Okay, so the straps and the buckles. I could do the same kind of cheat later, What I really should have done is made a buckle. And then instead of drawing on a gem, drawn on a buckle. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead, just because I feel like doing it, I'm going to draw on the detailing for his, his shoulder pad right here. Now I'm going to make sure to auto mask back face, and I'm going to shrink it. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off by having a bit, okay, no. We need to turn off lazy mouse for this. You notice it suddenly got a lot deeper. I can go ahead and shrink the depth. And we need to make it a little bit deeper, so 15. No. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off here. We're going to draw in a dragon's head. A rather stylized dragon's head. And then we're going to come back in, down, and we're going to come from here in, now I'm going to have to do some further yeah, tweaking of that. Okay, so we have that, and a little, and then we're going to draw on one little, and then we're going to draw on like a little wing here. Some Norse dragons had wings. For example, in the story of Fafnir, he did not have wings and had to crawl along the ground like a worm. But Nidhogg, who feasted upon the roots of the world tree, did have wings. Okay. Now I'm going to go to inflate, and we're going to inflate parts of this to bring them out a little bit. And I'm going to use the move tool. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to grab the tops of this and pull them under so that you can't see through the grid, through the ridges. There you go. A little bit of cheating. Also, this one needs to be subdivided just once. Actually twice, to be nice and smooth. Okay, so next up is boots. And what we're going to do, we're going to give him fur top boots. Going to make him pretty fantasy. So we're going to select here. They're going to be pretty heavy cuffs. We're then going to select same on this side. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit off the bottom because that's a little bit too far down compared to the other one. Yeah, there we go. We're going to extract them at 0.025. I want them a little bit thicker than the clothing extractions, but not as thick as the heavy armor. Extract. Accept. Draw. Draw. And now what I'm going to do under geometry is I'm going, well, first I got to make sure I have the things selected, and then I'm going to Dynamesh them at 64. Then I'm going to deformation, and I'm going to inflate just a little bit, and then polish. One more time, that ought to do it. Yeah, see how they're much rounder, they're more in the style. Now the thing is, that's all they are, is round. They don't have the texture that would make them look like poofy fur boots. So I'm coming over here and I'm going to go to the standard brush, drag dot, alpha. I'm going to choose this alpha, alpha 8, and I'm going to make the mouse equal to just under the size of the width of these things, or just over rather. Now this is very simple. I come over and I turn off lazy mouse and I drop this to about 15, 14, yeah, and that's not enough, so I drop it up to 44. That might not be enough. I bring it back up to 60. 50 that'll do. Yeah, there we go. And I just start drawing on. All this is a noise pattern that when I use it in this way, it ends up giving me something that very simply resembles the kind of big poofy fur that you see like on, on the tops of Uggs, for example, if you want to really make someone sick with their fashion choices. Now let's frame out and compare the two. You can see the difference in this and that. Now, we zoom in, and we're going to do it with the other one. Actually, we need to make it a little bit bigger, because this one's a little bit bigger. Kind of basically just like alternating between top half and bottom half, so that they're overlapping, but without getting too overlapped. Also, by using drag dot, it'll rotate somewhat randomly as we move the brush, meaning it won't look as repetitive as if we were placing them in unison with each other, There we go. And we frame out. Well, I need to get one lower in here, right there. And that's our boots. The next thing is, we know from my references and my comments last week that back then the boots and shoes they wore were pretty much shoes with a calf wrap. So I'm going to go ahead and do something similar to what I did last time. Whoop. Nope. Not deep enough. I gotta come from here. Oh, wrong way. And thanks to that nearly magical seam brush, I have a very clear delineation between the ankle and the shin. I'm going to do the same thing here. See, what this seam brush does is it digs in on it pushes out on the brush and digs in under it, making it look like, well, nope, that doesn't look good. Anyway, making it look like there are two different pieces there that are, one is overlapping the other. And I posted the link in the Discord last week. It should still be somewhere in the Discord. There we go. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in just a regular sewn seam. So we're going to zoom in. We're going to turn on transparency so we can start up here and you'll start bringing it down. And that didn't quite do what I wanted it to do. So we're going to start at the bottom and bring it up. Yeah, that's much better. I'm going to do it on the outside too. I don't know, it's not deep enough. Let's make it a little bit stronger. Okay. And then here. Okay, and we're going to move this, and we're going to do it over here. And move it over to here, and come up from here. There, and the boots are done. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to make these into baggy Viking breeches. So we go first to standard, we turn off the alpha, we turn off drag dot, or rather we go over to dots, and we shrink it down. And we shrink the intensity down to about 8. Actually, let's do this as clay buildup with alpha 01. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to just start, okay. The wrinkles would start coming in about like that, but they're also baggy. No, we want it bigger brush. with the rather largely muscled upper torso, it won't take much to take away the appearance of muscle and make it look more like wrinkly clothing. Especially when we remember how to make these look more like wrinkles after we put the volume in here. This is just adding in the volume for the wrinkles. The detailing of them will be with the slash brushes, as I've shown in the past. Okay. Now, okay. Heck, even now, it makes it more obvious that those are baggy pants. So now we're going to go ahead and zoom in. We got plenty of time to work on the rest of this. We're going to go to slash. I'm going to turn off lazy mouse, bring it down quite a bit. Make it to 14. We're going to shrink the mouse just a bit to make roughly the size of the space between these wrinkles, up to the size of the average wrinkle. We're going to the wrinkles that go into the shoe go down all the way. The rest of them start above and come out. We're also going to smooth out the tops of these wrinkles because they don't suddenly start or stop. Okay. And then we're going to do the same down here. And down here, and coming up like that. And then a wrinkle across here, and then one across here. One coming up like that. Okay, so that's the inner wrinkles. Now we're going to go to add and drop it down to about 9. And we're going to draw on the bottom of these wrinkles. Now the reason why the bottom is because gravity gives it more of a fabric-y droop than to put it in the middle of the wrinkle. Especially for the ones down actually here. That actually go horizontal. And yes, this means that you can have 2 different peaks on the same wrinkle as it changes direction. And now we're going to come over to the other leg. And we're going to draw on the bottom. Okay, now we're going to frame out. I'm going to grab a bit of soda. Those legs are looking a lot. The legs are pretty much done. I now have to do the skirt, the beard, and a few other detailings with over a half hour left to go. So let's go ahead and find our okay, good. We've got the belt. We're gonna turn on transparency because we need to make sure that we can get underneath the belt, and we're going to clay buildup. And we're going to make this one a little bit larger wrinkles because this is a heavier material. And the wrinkles are kind of going to go from here and down this way. And down that. And we're going to kind of come up like this and up there. Okay. Now, we go back to slash. Sub, bring it up to 14. 14, and we're going to slash in between. Oh, as it in between, not through. Up like that and smooth it a bit. Once again, these are going to be less divisive. Now, once again, if you don't know, the reason why I have both a peak and a valley is not just for realism, but also for people who are painting. See, the valleys, like I'm carving in now, really are thirsty for an for a paint wash or an ink wash. Whereas the peaks that I'm going to be adding in here in just a couple minutes do well for dry brushing. And there are some people who actually use both on the same surface. So this will help them and help anyone else who's using either of those techniques to get a nice, good, you know, nice, good, distinct layer areas for their paint job. I do the same thing on hair, but in a different way. Okay. Now I'm going to add and dropping it back down to 9. And I have a Shinju. Get over here, Shinju. I said, get over here. What is with you tonight, Furball? All right, all right. There you go. But yeah, like I said, now that I'm actually drawing these in, let's go ahead and move him up and draw on the underside. Oh, it'd help if I had my tablet angled right in my lap. And both of these need to have a bigger brush. Okay, and it would come down this way. Actually, that one we needed to come down and not meet. Let's reduce that intensity a little. Considering that where I am, it's going to end up just making unnaturally sharp
edges. I can always just hit 1 to get sharper ones, and then smooth. Okay, then frame out, turn off transparency, and we're going to tweak the belt just a little right here. Move. I'm going to grab it and move it out just a little because of that. In the same token, we're going to grab it here and move it to follow that wrinkle. Okay, frame out. And I am mostly done here. Let me go ahead and turn on the beard. Now we're going to subdivide it a little until it's smooth, and then dynamesh it, and then subdivide it until it's smooth. We're now going to hide, well actually let's go ahead and merge all of the armor pieces. Merge the straps and okay. Then we're going to hide the straps and armor pieces and just deal with the beard. And the way we're going to start it is we're actually going to start it with what's called the snake hook brush. And what this is going to do is I'm going to grab and drag down the back what will be strands . 3, 4, 5, 6. Smooth out the rest. Now I'm going back to clay buildup with the round alpha. I'm also going to hide. I'm going to hide the fingers and hand, so I have an easier time viewing the beard. Okay, now clay buildup, we're going to drop that size down quite a bit, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make braids coming down the sides right about here. Now how are we going to make braids, you say? Well, we're turning that intensity up, and we're going to draw. That's not enough. Let's turn that intensity up, and we're going to draw here. No, still not enough. Turn that intensity way up. Make it a bit wider. Okay, and then we're going to draw on a there. Let's smooth that out. And then we're going to draw on a little tuft here. Now we're going to slash sub, reduce that size, and increase the intensity, and we're going to basically just outline the braid we just added. Okay. We're then going to use move, and we're going to grab down here and kind of pull it out a bit more so that we have more room for the other braid. We're also going to actually pull it back a bit more. And then we're going to smooth it. Okay, now we go back to our clay buildup brush, and we're actually going to start with a different side. It's a good idea to have your braid a little bit thicker at the top if you make a braid, because they do tend to be tighter near the bottom. And now we go back to slash and draw our outline around the braid. After we do this, we'll be doing the actual strands of hair that aren't braided. Okay, frame out. There's his beard. That's probably something that won't be very visible except on brain fry resin printers. Right, now that's slash. I want clay buildup. Lower the intensity, increase the size a little. We're gonna then we're gonna kind of bring it in. We're gonna let's use inflate for the mustache part. And then we're going to go use slash for the rest of this. Just drop that down. And then once again, we're going to start from the front. We're going to have just a few we're going to kind of come in between them a little bit here because he's got kind of erratic, raggedy hair. And then we're going to come up for these and go to add, drop it down to 8, and kind of draw in the tops of our beard and hair locks. Hair locks are not to be confused with Sherlocks. Sherlocks will give you a third degree and tell you everything you ever did in your life when you first meet them. Hair locks just sit on your head. Wouldn't you agree? And also with hair, we're not doing that sharper edge on the bottom thing. We're kind of being a little bit more random about it, because hair is a bit more random than cloth. Okay, I'm thinking that's done for the hair. And we frame out. And except for his hands, we're mostly done here. Well, hands and base. This is Mighty Beowulf. Actually, I know one thing I'm going to do. Let's go back to the beard. Get the move tool. Make it bigger. And I'm just going to grab the center of it and drag it further down. Turn on transparency so I can see it, and I'm going to kind of drag it out. So that it's more... it looks fuller and healthier. Okay. Now what I'm going to do... got 4 people watching and nobody talking. Actually, I'm going to go ahead, since I got 20 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and give him a bracer on his left arm, on his sword arm. Since he's got the pauldron on the right arm, he's going to get a bracer on the left. So... let's go ahead and... a little bit. Rotate. Okay, now shrink this and draw on the bottom part. And while I'm thinking about it, remove that part. Okay, and then we're going to come back. We're going to come back to the front here. We're going to rotate it back a little so I can cut that off, and then a little bit more even like that. Okay, now frame out and Control Alt minus to get rid of it, or Control Shift, Control Alt drag. Whoop. Control Alt drag. No. Okay. So the only thing I've got currently masked off is that forearm. And we're going to go ahead and extract it at 0.02. Extract, accept. And as we did before, well, let's go ahead and demask. As we did before, we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn on, go to curve tube, and we're going to make sure that we have that selected. And we are going to click there and there. Alright, so we've got to make these separate, that's right. And we're going to split unmasked points. There, split unmasked points. And one click. Now, first of all, this we need to merge down. And they're going to actually get one level of subdivision. But the bracer itself, we need to dynamesh it to 56 and then divide it until it's there. Now on the interior, we're going to go with seam 21 again. We're going to draw it in pretty deeply. Okay. But on the back, we're going to go to seam 16 and draw there and there, and then we're going to draw, oh, wrong way. No, that was the right way. We're going to draw from here. We're going to draw up and then down. Then we're going to draw up and then down. And you can see what it did. Yay! We got just a couple strokes, and we've got a nice, nifty little bracer there. Alright, so now we're going back to him, because what we're going to do now is we're going to refine the hands. As part of that, well, first let me go ahead and merge down so all of the armors are one piece. Okay. Now I'm going back to him. I'm going to turn the sword on so that we can see the hands in the presence of them. Okay, now going to inflate. I'm going to drop the draw size to 14 because that's the most common draw size for this. Don't ask me how I know. I've just done so many hands. Make sure that the intensity is at 9. And then we're going to draw on our knuckles. Once we've drawn the knuckles, we zoom back the tendons. And then we smooth out where the tendons are. Then we come in, we look at the fingers, and we can see that here and here are where the knuckles are going to be for the index, and so we can then place the knuckles for the rest of the fingers. And then a brief pass of the smooth brush to kind of join the knuckles. Then we have a typical thumb problem. We just go ahead and enlarge that area there. And enlarge here. Okay. Now we go to slash. I said we go to slash, Z sub 15, 12. And we just kind of go over where the, actually no, we need to make that a little bit bigger. And divide where the fingers are. If you ever find that you have to make a choice, err on the side of making the pinky smaller and the middle finger bigger. At this scale, there's not much that we can tell the difference of between them, but it's just, you know, as long as you know, it'll help. Okay, and that's that hand. Now this hand. So we go back to back to inflate. And we inflate here, 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 here. Then we draw on our tendons. And we smooth out the bottom of them. Then, okay, we'll knuckle here, knuckle here. We're not actually going to smooth these because your fingers are unbent there. Then we're going to increase the size of inflate. We're going to inflate around the base of the thumb, inflate around the heel of the hand, and right here. Then we're going to use slash. We're going to draw in under the fingers, and we're going to draw in here and then down there. And smooth out the ends. Then we're going to come here and we're going to draw a couple. Well, it comes from the wrong direction. And then I smooth out the bottom. That's something that might never get seen or noticed, but it's there, and we know it's there, and that makes us happy. Frame out. And this is our mighty Beowulf. His sword, we're going to, first of all, under geometry, we're going to subdivide it till it's smooth, lower, and then we're going to Dynamesh it at 512. And then subdivide it again. Because what we're going to do, going to give it a one polish. Okay. Now, we're going back to standard. We're going to drag dot. And we're bringing the alpha. We're actually going to use alpha 37. No, alpha 38. And just to see, we can't see anything from that. We're going to increase the intensity to 100. So we're going to shrink it a little and draw on a couple dots into the handle, into the crossguard area. Once again, this is something that probably won't get seen unless you print it on a resin, and even then, only if you're looking for it. There we go. Now we're going to use inflate, and we're going to inflate each of these. Just a little bit. What that'll do is that'll make that detail a little bit easier for any printer to catch, at the same time making it more distinct when you actually go to paint. Okay. So it's got a decorative bit of a sword there. And this is our Beowulf so far. We're going to add one more thing. We're going to go to a different seam, a cross seam, and we're going to come down this side or go up this side. No. First of all, we need to make it deeper. Then we need to make it a lot bigger. That's that side, and then we're going to come up from here. Okay. See what we get? Just a little bit of detail. Oh, a lot of detail for just a brief surge. Now, I am not going to condense him yet, because he needs his base dealt with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge everything except the base. So we have it as one piece, and I'm going to hide it. Now we go to the base. Frame. What do you want? Ugh. Get a load of this. Little crazy cat. Yes. Beep. Oh yes, my cats are so wild and feral. After he got his kiss, he looked away. There you go. Okay, so frame. Zoom out a bit, flatten. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask everything except the absolute top. There. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, it's going to be weird, I'm going to add on, oh that's right, I forgot, this needs to be Dynamexed first. Yeah, there we go. And divide. Now, as I said, we're going to select everything but the absolute top. And then I'm going to start drawing on more mask. And then shrink the mouse. And change that focal shift all the way to the opposite side. And, well, no. The focal shift is there. No. Okay, and then I'm going to remove mask over here. No, I'm not. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make it come around like this. Okay, then once again I'm going to flatten it and make sure to reselect that. There. Nope. Okay. Now, I'm going to pull up, zoom out a bit, and I'm going to go to standard brush, drag rectangle, and I need a new alpha. This alpha is going to come from here. Or is it? No, it's not. Alpha is going to come from bases. And the area we're working with now is going to be grassy. Alright, open. And all I got to do is bring that intensity down just a bit. That's a bit too high. First of all, let's bring that focal shift. And let's drop that intensity there. Alright, hold on a second. Masking. Sharpen mask. Okay, now let's try it. There we go. We got our basic grass shape there. Now we're going to invert, but then we go back down to here and we mask everything but the absolute top. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's what it is. There we go. Now, we're going to go to deformation. We're going to offset Y just in infinitesimal amount, just to bring it up there. Up to... 0.3. There we go. And now I'm going to grab the alpha. This time I'm going to import one from my Titans of Legend, a cracked earth alpha. And it's going to subtract. And let's zoom out and not very deep. Let's make it a little bit deeper with a 17. No, 18. Okay, that is the base, where cracked earth and grass meet. Now let's go ahead and turn on Beowulf. Zoom out, frame all the way. And we're going to merge down. Now, we're going to Dynamesh at 1024 because I want to make sure we get all of the detail. And there we go. It's Dynameshed. Oh, wait a minute. It's 2.4 million polygons. That's not cool. So we got to make this printable. So what we do is we go here to Z plugin and we go to Decimation Master. Now you'll notice that there's these buttons here. I've got a custom one for 50. That's 100,000 triangles. I'm thinking he's detailed enough to need 100,000 triangles. So let's click Custom. And let's hope that it works this time, because sometimes it kind of hiccups. You'll see that orange bar up there. You know, that's showing how the progress is going for this. Now that is not Hrunting in his hand. That's the sword he finds in Grendel's mother's cave. That particular sword even though it was very obviously enchanted in some way, is only ever used against Grendel's mother. So, it might be a thing to say that it was enchanted specifically to kill Grendel's mother. And excellent. It did it. It did it wonderfully. It's now reordering. Then writing file to disk. And reading goes E file 100,131 triangles for our mighty, mighty Beowulf. Let's go ahead and click on perspective, frame it, and what's going to happen now, first, Bert, we're going to go ahead and export it. And this is going not to Titans of Legend, but to Broadcast Miniatures New Beowulf Final. Actually, no, this is going to Titans of Legend Grendel Files. Beowulf Final. We're going to move it over just a bit. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make a movie. It is 10:05. So yes, I managed to get that done in just under 2 hours. And when you compare Beowulf here to some of my earlier works, it's gotten a lot more detailed. Alright, so, movie. We want the document window. Tile image 0. Fade in and out. That was title. Overlay image 0. Modifiers, we want the playback FPS to be the same size, the same amount as the recording FPS. That's just to make things easy. Now, I hit turntable. And it records it spinning in a full 360. Alright. Now, I export it back down one Grendel to Beowulf turn, and it will record each individual frame. That was pretty quick, yeah, but eh. And then I can later go in and convert that to a animated GIF or animated GIF, whichever you prefer. I'm not one of those. Now there's one thing we forgot to do that really helps, especially on something with as many small details as this. And that's, we zoom out until it's about the size that you'll see it printed. And you'll see what details will be clearly visible, like the bits on the back of the bracer, the dragon on the shoulder pad. Actually, that's a little large. A little small, rather. Yeah. The detailing on the boots is clearly visible. So is the seams down the side. The dots on the cross guard are a little hard to see. The braids are visible. So yeah, this is a nicely successful, finely detailed Beowulf. Yay! Mark, a lot of writing teachers, art teachers say, write every day, draw every day. And since April or so, I pretty much have been. So this is a prime example. If you look at the figures from April, May, June, and you look at the ones I'm doing now, in the same amount of time. Now, admittedly, I'm not so much learning how to do it all. I'm actually, it's more like I'm figuring out tricks to make things faster. I could have made something on par with tonight's Beowulf back in April. but I wanted to only have a 2-hour time slot, because more than 2.5 hours or so, and I start to get really, really tired. I become faster. I've learned new tricks, like just last week or week before. The new technique for making the chainmail that I used on the Viking warrior. Tonight, the technique that I used to make that waistcloth look like it was folded over instead of just slapped on top. Exactly, Emilio. And Mark, don't worry. It's not a race. In general, I've been doing 3D since professionally, for a living, since December of 2001. This is my 17th anniversary. But it's still less than a year for miniatures. That's what I hope, Emilio. My point in doing these isn't, look at me, look how much I can sculpt, but look how I do it, so you can learn how to do this. You know, like, why do I do these strokes with this tool? What is the reason I chose this outfit? What is that called? That's why I do these. I am learning just as much by teaching, and that's a cliche. I don't pretend to know anything more than about 10% of what ZBrush is capable of. I don't pretend to know the entirety of the musculoskeletal system. I know what really works best and stands out most on a tabletop miniature scale. You know, I know things like that, but yeah. Ugh. Okay, so anyway, it's 10:11 in Memphis. Oh, I didn't show you what happened to Grendel. I screwed up. I forgot some support areas. And when I got Grendel off the printer, you know, he looked fine from the back. Looked great. One shot, one kill. I turned him around. His knee here is missing. The front of his foot, right there, is missing. It's hard to see with the red, but his pectoral muscle has a gash that perfectly lines up with the missing supports. Yay! So, it was a wasted print. I re-sliced it and have it on the machine now. Sadly, Mark, yes it is. Well, I can always take the supports and spray paint them pale gray and use them as scatter spiderweb terrain. That's something to think about. You know, use supports as scatter spiderweb terrain. So anyway, I am going to be going ahead and preparing to log off. I'm going to do my usual 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, I could use green stuff to make that missing knee, but that would defeat the purpose of printing it the way I'm doing it. Because I want it to be, this is what you can print exactly. This is the final figure. And because I'm doing a Kickstarter, and I don't want fake advertising in my Kickstarter. I want to show this came off my machine. This is what I painted. This is what you can do. I mean, in addition to the painted resin Polyphemus, I printed one on my CR10. Emilio, if I was doing it just for my own purposes, I would. But it's an insult to my pride. But yeah, I printed out the CR10 version of Polyphemus in addition to the resin version. So I want to show that, yes, these can be done like how Danny did. I respect the hell out of Danny. And he had all of these actual prints of the majority of his dragons. When it comes time to do my Kickstarter, I want to be able to show the actual prints of these characters and giants and set pieces that are going to be part of the whole set. And I want my giants. Yes, this is Polyphemus. Yes, he's got a burnt out eye socket. But if you wanted just to use him as a generic Cyclops, you could. If you just wanted to use Argus, who's got eyes all over the top of his head, if you wanted to just, I don't know, paint it so that he's wearing a helmet and those eyes are part of the helmet, oh look, it's a storm giant. Things like that. Did someone say Dragonborn casters? Anyway, I've been given permission to show them off. So, media file. And these, perchance, might be what you're talking about, right? Male and female, with the females having the dragon-blooded sorcerer wings, and both of them having tails. And if you'll notice, the two in front are actually undead. The female ice dragonborn is a draugr, and the male magma dragonborn is a mummy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're undead. There is still quite a bit more to come from Danny. That's all I will say. I don't have an official NDA, but dude, the man's probably one of the nicest men in the industry, if you can call it an industry, in the community. There's no way I'm going to just say, "Hey, look what I did." I wasn't ready for you to show that yet. I'm sorry, I did it. Oh well. Yep, I also have a version of the two in back on smaller bases. Oh, and you know how I made all those extra weapons for the regular Dragonborns that they have? You can take off the right arm, or it has no right hand. You can have something else. Well, it seems that I did something similar for these guys. From left to right. Magma Snake Staff, Magma Scarab Staff, Spellcasting Ice Bolt, 2 different Ice Staves, Ice Dagger, Flaming Skull, and Flaming Wand. Oh, and down here at the very bottom is a hand just doing that for generic spellcasting hand. Would you believe I had not sculpted flame until I did these projects? In fact, that wand is the first flame I've ever sculpted. Mm-hmm. Learning. It's a wonderful thing. And yes, they print beautifully. I am sorely tempted to make a whole set of files for a hobgoblin army and have them available. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and log out now. I'm going to do my 54321 bit. Especially, well, if you think about it, what you could do, you take the original Dragonborn and you set them up as different units. You know, sword and shield, spear, you know, axe. And then you have the commanders and the champions as heroic members, and then you've got the casters on the sides. You can make an entire small war band out of all those options. Well, anyway, here we go. This is going to be a countdown. When I get to 1, I will be logging out. So that will be 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good night.